What is up, everyone? I am Charlie Shrem. You are listening and watching Untold Stories, where twice a week we get to dive deep with some of crypto's most influential leaders, smartest people in the room, and the ones who, during the times of pandemic, during the times of the dips, during the times of the bear, are building new projects and new companies. And I was very excited when my guest today, Lina Seiche, you launched the BTC Times. And I was very excited when you had launched that and to talk about it, because I think what's happening in our multi-chain, multi-coin world is sometimes when I like to talk about just Bitcoin or glorify Bitcoin and the ethos of Bitcoin and the history, sometimes I'm looked at or I'm automatically judged as a maximalist or someone like a supremacist, a Bitcoin supremacist. And I think it's unfair because, and one of the reasons I started this show is to not let the past 10 years of or 11 years of Bitcoin's history go to waste. And I think one of the reasons you started the BTC Times is to focus on like Bitcoin from an economic, technical, social, and political angle. And that mission is really important to me too. So thank you for doing that. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And you're the managing director.
Yes, and thank you for having me. And that's an awesome intro.
Do you find yourself at odds sometimes feeling when you're writing about a pro Bitcoin article that it'll be perceived as an anti something else?
I think it happens. I think we definitely have our audience, and then we have people that say, "Oh, it's a Bitcoin maximalist outlet, so you're biased, in favor of Bitcoin, and you're anti everything else." That's a blanket opinion that we've been confronted with, and that's just something we have to deal with. Well, I would rather see it as we want to report on Bitcoin and not get distracted with all the other stuff that's out there, of which there is a lot. And there's a lot of outlets that talk about that, but we just want to focus on Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is from day one. Bitcoin has been compared to things, and partly because it's easier to understand something when we compare it to other things. But Bitcoin is impossible to compare to everything else because it's a whole new paradigm shift in and of itself. And so when the media compares Bitcoin to something, and then you start to see like the gold versus Bitcoin or the Ethereum versus Bitcoin debates, between you and I, all those debates, we never created those debates. I feel like they come from the other side. I feel like the gold bugs created the gold versus Bitcoin debate.
It might be the case. A lot of the comparisons that you see, especially in the media, I think they're created to make the whole concept of Bitcoin a bit easier to grasp, because Bitcoin is really novel, as you say, and a lot of people have no idea what it's about. And if you just go and Google Bitcoin and you go to the Wikipedia entry, you'll just be super confused. So I think a lot of the comparisons are created to make it easier to understand, and some of them make more sense than others, and some of them, I'd argue, even have helped Bitcoin a little bit in terms of adoption.
I would agree with that too, because when the messages get separated, the folks who are looking for like a specific thing now, like you don't have to dilute that message. You can focus on one specific thing. And there's some great topics. Like one of the things I've been looking at lately, because I feel like in the last month or so, especially last week with China coming out with its usual annual FUD. It's China banning Bitcoin FUD. They do it every year. And then you have the US FUD now saying that all Bitcoin transactions, would need to be reported in tax. There's always, every year it comes out. Markets, they try to tame our markets by putting out mainstream media and putting out fear, uncertainty, and doubt. When our market gets too hot, they try to tame it. It happens all the time. You've seen it 10 times. That's what's happening now. That's what's happening. That's what's happening every year. It's exhausting. It's like I throw Nick Carter sells these FUD dice. I just throw them. Like, what's the FUD of the day? But talk to me about hyperbitcoinization. Have we reached that point where it doesn't matter?
Well, we've not reached the point of hyper-Bitcoinization, but if you're asking if we've reached a point of, no return where we're on the way towards hyper-Bitcoinization, we might be. If hyper-Bitcoinization is the point at which Bitcoin becomes the dominant monetary system, the dominant unit of account, and the main form of money that people store, save, and transact, and maybe essentially replaces the fiat system. It sounds, I think, crazy to a lot of people, but I wouldn't say it's unrealistic sometime between now and the next 100 years or so, even though that might even be a bit bearish considering Bitcoin has come so far in the last 12 years. But I think we are on the way there, and the fiat monetary system is certainly not helping itself with what's been going on. There's a lot of doubt that's been growing, not just among Bitcoiners, but among a lot of people, seeing how much money is being uh, created and wondering, where does it end?
And you said something very interesting there. You said like take over the fiat system or the money supply. What I've learned recently is there actually isn't like there's not just one system, right? There's so many systems around the world, and like the dollar, there's the M1 money supply, there's the M2, then there's physical money that's out there in circulation. Then there's debt money, like money that's actually just debt against other things. There's a lot of different types of money in dollars, as you would say, or dollar, in circulation. Uh, but Bitcoin's different because it's not just like that ledger when you go from one financial institution to the next. You have the ability now to actually custodialize your money on your own. So it creates a monopoly, not from one financial institution to have to compete with the other financial institution, but the whole financial system now has a counterbalance that's Bitcoin. And as long as that counterbalance exists and enough people believe in it and use it and want to use it and hold it and store it, the legacy financial system will constantly have to like compete with that. My fear, and some of the things I point out is like the messages that you see today are muddled with like stable coins and coins that are backed by other things and not in that faith system, that belief system of like Bitcoin is value because of that supply demand. Uh, what happens if there's like a hyper push towards using these like government backed stable coins or government backed crypto tokens, and everyone's like thinking that they're using crypto, but at the end of the day, they push Bitcoin into this like stupid little niche collectible historical thing
Have they been trying to push Bitcoin into this niche
from day
historical
one? Yeah.
collectible thing for like the past decade or so? It's digital central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, I think are more of a threat to today's stable coins than to Bitcoin. And there is going to be a huge push for them. And we're seeing a lot of that already. Some countries are testing and others are researching, but most central banks that are looking into it are saying it will be great, it will be super convenient, and it will be. And that will be, it will be so easy to use that it'll make you forget what the negative implications of it are. And it will not replace Bitcoin, and it will probably make Bitcoin only more important, just because you'd have to be incredibly naive to think you'll have a central bank digital currency and still be able to use cash. You still have cash today, and there's a lot of, I think the ECB, they say even if or once we have a CBDC, you'll still be able to use cash for now. But
They would ban cash if they could right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it gives you privacy, and it's alone the temptation of having a digital currency in your control that theoretically you could use to control the money even more, and to watch what your people are doing. If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, it could get really ugly for you. And so Bitcoin is not threatened by that at all. Bitcoin is the solution to that.
Hey guys, the Coin Gaming IO folks are back at it with another amazing promo. This time they're giving away 3 Teslas from April 19th to June 27th. It's so cool. Bitcasino.io/Charlie. There's so many incentives and promos and things that they've been giving away over the past few months to my listeners. But now, if you go to bitcasino.io/Charlie and you play their game Live Crash, and you can get in the top 10 in all 10 tournaments, you will be entered in to win one of 3 Teslas. So all you got to do is go in there, play some slots, play some games, get into the top 10 in any of the games, and you'll be entered to win one of 3 Teslas. I mean, how cool is that? They've been giving away stuff at St. Patty's Day, at Valentine's Day. They're constantly, we're always doing so many amazing promos. Bitcasino.io/Charlie. You will not be disappointed. The most important part of our Bitcoin and crypto industry is being able to not only earn money in crypto, but also be able to spend it, earn rewards in crypto, and keep that revolution going, keep the cycle going of all of us together. Well, my partners at shopping.io are offering just that. Multi-tiered discounts up to 10% where you can spend your crypto anywhere that you're already buying everything already, Amazon, Walmart, eBay, but use your crypto to spend it, earn back cash back, earn back rewards. And not only that, but if you go to untoldstories.link/shopping.io, you get an additional, on top of every other discount, an additional 2%. So you can go there now and shop and get 12% off of everything you're already buying anyways, and use your crypto. You can ship to almost any country in the world. Fantastic, fantastic company. Make sure you check them out at untoldstories.link/shopping.io.
What you're talking about is the separation between money and state, right? For the first time 10 years ago, Satoshi gave us a way to have that separation where we didn't have to be given it, or like the power didn't have to be ceded. We didn't have to fight for that power from governments to have that more control over our financial sovereignty. Satoshi gave us that ability to build it from scratch. But it seems like now it's trying to be enveloped. I don't know which is, you're a journalist, or you could probably tell me. It seems like that's what, and we need to maintain that separation. So Lina, you're a journalist for a long time. You've lived in a million places, traveled around the world constantly, speak to a million people. Do you think, like, this is an honest question, do you think there should be a full separation between money and state? Or like, what role, if any, should governments have in like the money or the financial sovereignty of that country or whatever?
Well, I think we got to see like what does it mean to separate money and state? And I think at the most basic level, it just means the state no longer controls the money. Like the state no longer controls the monetary policy, how much money is printed, and can no longer surveil what the citizens are doing with that. And what that means basically is that the governments would have to start thinking differently. They couldn't print money to pay for things. They'd have to actually budget. They couldn't, they'd be way less tempted and way less able to surveil transactions. And yeah, you need to actually start budgeting better. And that might have some, consequences in the sense that there might be certain competition coming up, in the sense that you have a budget, and if you need more money, you got to raise taxes, for example. But if you raise taxes too much, your citizens are going to move elsewhere where countries are budgeting better, for example. So
It's not just that they won't just move elsewhere, but like, think about this, Lina. What if you had a local version of Bitcoin in let's just say Singapore, right? I'm going to use like one of my favorite countries as an example. And the Singaporean government said, we're going to actually double the tax rate tomorrow. The citizens could then, who are of this local Bitcoin, who are actually mining, running all the nodes, could then vote to like, double the supply of their local, of the currency. You could have a massive referendum of all Singaporeans say like, oh, your government are going to try to double the tax. We're going to like, debase the currency to not let you do that. Like, that's crazy game theory. I can't even fathom if that's possible.
Well, in that sense, you're talking about like a local currency that's like a Singaporean dollar, but controlled by the Singaporean people.
Hmm.
The question is, how do
Do
you
you remember
build
there
that,
was an
right? Because it
experiment?
would still be controlled by the government to some extent, right? If you want to
Well, maybe
launch that.
not. Like, do you remember there was a gentleman who tried airdropping tokens to every citizen of Iceland? It was like Aurora coin or something. I thought it was a great idea, but I thought it was like he was like 2013. I was like way too early for this. Like no one even you still had to convince people that Bitcoin wasn't a scam. Maybe now, if he did it again, it could be cool. How would you connect the like database of citizens and then the airdrop part? I don't know. How would how would that all work? I don't know. But imagine a world where like that was the game theory would be crazy, but that would be a full separation of money and state. But then the money could have its own governance in and of itself, rivaling the state.
Right. Though I do think that let's say you have like a local Singaporean dollar, but you want to decentralize it, you want to have it controlled by your people. I think it's very difficult to pull that off because either your
Yeah, it's
government
hard. Yeah.
issues it, and then you have this, you have this centralizing factor. If you want to, bootstrap at least want to start it like Bitcoin, it's going to be I think almost impossible because, and that's what people say when they talk of Bitcoin's immaculate conception, right? And Bitcoin's,
It's impossible to create
unrecreatable
another Bitcoin.
launch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wouldn't work. So it would never be as decentralized. So, you could have it, you could have a Singaporean dollar kind of thing, and then you have some other national currency and they could be rivaling, but then it would still be a completely different level than Bitcoin.
Yeah. You couldn't the reason you couldn't recreate Bitcoin today because then everyone would know that you're recreating a cryptocurrency and the game theory behind the creation of a cryptocurrency wouldn't be there. The reason it's where it is today is because no one tried. Like we tried, but it wasn't forced. It was different. I can't explain it. Or I should be able to, but it's like uh
Well, if you
you
try to
can't
create Bitcoin now, people know you're trying to create Bitcoin. They
it just
won't. It's
yeah.
too dangerous. Bitcoin is too dangerous to be recreated. It will be attacked. Bitcoin at the beginning was very weak, and very vulnerable. And if
Oh
a
yeah.
state had wanted to attack it would have worked. Now it's too late. But now, if it happens again, it'll be cracked down on. That's why any coins that come up now, if they're going to be successful by whatever definition of the term, they will have some sort of centralized entity or centralizing factor.
There's a lot of uh misinformation and like crappy journalism in our space. Still is. We're finally seeing now like the newer crop of companies that are like hyper focused, hyper niche. You have BTC Times. You have actually my parent company, the Blockworks Group, blockworks.co. They are another media like Bloomberg for crypto. You have the newer, like I see CoinDesk and the Block and some of the others are bringing on um, people from some of these other mainstream media. Although you'd say like, why do we want those people in the first place? Whatever. Um, How do my listeners decipher what's real and what's bad? How do they decipher if they're going to a place where they're reading some crypto news, they're in an app, they're reading about something? How do they know if it's good or bad? And like, what's the deal with journalists using Twitter as sources for articles nowadays? Twitter is not a source.
Yeah, so well, there's two questions in there. Like, how do you find good news? It's really hard. It's getting increasingly harder because you have major news outlets publishing poorly researched stuff, which seems to be out for clicks and not much else. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It's often that and let's say you have a big mainstream media outlet and they see, okay, something's happening with Bitcoin. Tesla bought Bitcoin, for
Mm.
example. That we should talk about it, right? And then they assign it to one of their journalists, and that journalist maybe usually writes about business, stocks, economics, those kinds of things, they might not have a background in Bitcoin, because there's very few people that are journalists and are Bitcoin savvy. So this person with little background in Bitcoin then tries to write the story, and what do? I guess they go to Google, they Google it, they find some other story, and they build their hypothesis off of that. And it's just never going to have this background that you as a Bitcoiner, especially you as an OG, would want to have in such a story. And it just builds up a lot of, poor research or misinformation, and that because it
Single-sided.
has this major reach still. Yeah, because it still has this major reach, it spreads really, really quickly. And then ironically, you have Elon Musk taking such a headline and using
Yeah.
it for his arguments. Right. But the part with Twitter that I think is interesting, well, there's different types of content out there, right? But sometimes I would say there is very valuable and increasingly very valuable information on Twitter, where I would feel sometimes Twitter commentary on a certain story provides as much, if not more, value on the topic than the actual story itself. That's of course not saying, Apple bought 5 billion worth of Bitcoin sources. That's not what I mean. But you have people like, let's say, Nick Carter providing amazing commentary on Twitter. And I would rather, journalists go and take that as a source than, they Google and take, the first headline they can find.
And you look at what
build up on
Jack
that.
Dorsey did too. He had to put out a white paper talking about how the environmental impact of Bitcoin is so much FUD right now and so wrong. And thankfully, like New York Magazine, just I think a day or two ago, wrote a very, very well written two-sided piece on that. But it's we're dealing with it again. It's the season. It's like every year or two. China's just today, another article, China's banning Bitcoin again. It's like coordinated FUD, misinformation, and it gets bigger and crazier every year. But the one thing I will say is this: the people that bought in during those times are the ones who made their fortunes. You know how many times I woke up in the morning and like my gut, and I knew it was like a crazy trading day, and it happened just the other day. And you see the crazy range, the crazy rate, like the crazy trading, within 60 minutes, up 3%, down 3%, up 8%, like crazy range bouncing. Every day I'll wake up and I'll talk to anyone who's around me and I'll say, today is the day that fortunes are made and lost. It's like, and it happens. It happens. In those days, these are the days that the smart people are the ones that are making the right trades. It's crazy. I'm ready for the day when we've reached the point of like hyper-Bitcoinization in the world, I guess is what I'm looking forward to.
Because you can say, I told you so.
Yeah. And less stress. How important is like the anonymity of Satoshi in this whole thing?
It's interesting. I think there's two levels to that in terms of importance. The importance of his disappearance for like the continuation of Bitcoin, for example, is at this point right now low. So if he or she or they came back today and said, I'm Satoshi, and actually proved it, it wouldn't mean much for Bitcoin. It would shock the market for sure in one way or another, depending, media would jump on it, and it would have a short-term market reaction. But Satoshi would have no influence on Bitcoin's protocol or network or, Bitcoin's overall direction at this point, simply because Bitcoin's way too far along. And that's a good thing, because anything else, if Satoshi hadn't disappeared in the first place, for example, having a figurehead is, in my opinion, a pretty bad thing. Just look at Doge right now. New figurehead is Elon Musk. If Elon Musk says tomorrow, I dumped all my Doge, I was wrong, no way it's going to stay at 30, wherever 30 cents it is right now. No way it's going to stay there. So he has a major impact on, not just the market, I think at this point. He could also impact more when it comes to Dogecoin.
Would you say that Satoshi sacrificed himself for the sake of Bitcoin. He sacrificed himself for the future of Bitcoin. Uh, he economically really, really sacrificed himself. He did the most unhuman thing, giving up power and money for the sake of something that could have become nothing. Very, very inhuman. Like, it's so grappling how inhuman that is.
It is.
Do you think he set a precedent of that Bitcoin can never have a hero? Bitcoin can never have a hero because Satoshi, who is the ultimate hero, sacrificed himself for that. And maybe that's why Elon Musk had such a 360, because, at least in my theory, is because he tried to become the hero of Bitcoin. And for a period, he was becoming that. But as soon as he got a little bit too powerful, crypto Twitter and the larger crypto community revolted against that and pissed him off. And that's what happened. So he went to Doge, which was like, hey, we want the hero. Doge is pissed off at Jackson left. And Jackson didn't leave because he doesn't really he had other private reasons, Jackson Palmer, the founder of Doge. So maybe that's kind of like, in my view, maybe that's what's going on. What do you think?
Yeah, you never know. Honestly, I have no idea what Elon Musk is thinking. But
I don't even think he thinks in the
yeah.
way we think.
Yeah. I've heard of the theory, and maybe, but if he has any common sense, he will not turn his back on Bitcoin, because Bitcoin and Doge are light years apart, and I see no scenario in which he wouldn't at least be partially aware of that, and if he isn't yet, he will be very soon. So maybe he likes being a hero. He might be, he's marketed himself fantastically to be this tech genius. He's like the super cool nerd that's so real with people, so approachable, so surreal at the same time.
Is that why we
which makes up
feel?
this fascination, that people have with him. Which is why people follow him.
Is that why there was almost like a betrayal feeling, or almost he became the villain because he was the hero at first? If he was never the hero, if he never tried to be that, then he wouldn't be what he is now in the Bitcoin space. So what's the difference between someone like him and Michael Saylor?
I think, well, okay, let's say if Michael Saylor tomorrow says, I'm going to sell my Bitcoin because Bitcoin destroys the environment, the same would happen to him as has been happening with Elon on Twitter. I think, and a lot of people like to say, we don't need Elon, and Bitcoin doesn't need Elon, which is true. But still, there's been a very strong reaction because he seemed so, well positioned to become a Bitcoiner before he first got involved. He seemed to understand the shortcomings of the fiat system. And when he first got involved, people were like, okay, it makes sense. Finally, he's one of us. So him turning around on it and, making these statements that are first, let's say, they look like trolls, and then now they just seem clearly uninformed. It was, I think it caused a lot of disbelief. So people were trying to sway him, and still are, which is also fine. But I think people didn't want to realize it at first. And another major issue that people have, I believe, is just the level of, the irresponsibleness.
No, you're right. Irresponsibility of, this is our jobs. We work, we feed our families here. We're not playing around. Go find another social experiment to fuck with.
Yeah. The thing is, because of his status, and he's one of the richest people in the world, he has this mega reputation, and there's 55 million people following him on Twitter. Even more people know him and maybe read about him online a lot. If he says something, there's going to be a lot of people that follow him, because among Bitcoiners, it's a very strong culture to ask questions, to not take things at face value. But outside of the space, it's not this is not a common thing. So people will
What's
see what
frustrating
Elon
is that
says and they will follow.
I agree with you so much. And the only thing I would add, only little thing I would add is that he took, he pulled at our heartstrings by by rage quitting with FUD that is so wrong and so easily proven to be wrong and stupid and something that we've been fighting for a long time. That's the only thing I would add. Like it wasn't, if it was something actually real, if he was, going after something that uh, actually, where Bitcoin actually negatively affects the world, then yeah, we should all, like you said, we're a question asking community. We're a question asking society. We all left our other communities, societies, social communities because we asked too many questions in those communities. And here we are. And that's what we do. We ask questions and we challenge constantly. Why do then people feel the need to like rage quit, from Elon Musk to even Mike Hearn in 2014 or whenever it was? Gavin, why do they feel a need to like write these long-winded posts like and huff and puff and storm off? It doesn't make any common sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing to that's always good to keep in mind is in the long run, the only one is gonna, not the only one, but in the long run, it's gonna hurt them more than it hurts Bitcoin. Like
Yeah,
obviously
exactly.
him Elon Musk now, saying these things, time will prove him wrong. And it's not like he has absolutely no point talking about Bitcoin's environmental impact. Um, there are things that you can say, but I think people would have appreciated it more if he had said
Sure, it could have
something
been
like,
yeah.
we're working on great solutions because, he has skin in the game with Tesla and they apparently haven't sold. So he still has that skin in the game. So that would have made a lot more sense and would have become way better. Well, I don't know if it would have become better PR for him. Depends on, which perspective you have. But
Elon Musk realized very early on that, and he said this, I think, I forget, on some podcast, he realized very early on that the only way to make change is to do it yourself. He said that. That's SpaceX, Tesla, anyone tries to get in your way, he said, F you, the government to investors. He just said, F you. And he just does. And I revere him for that. I look at him as like, wow, like we want to put someone, we want to take humans to Mars. We got to just wake up and do it. And that's what we do in Bitcoin. And so Bitcoiners and our community is actually one of the best fights against helping the world get to zero carbon emissions. Bitcoiners, I forget the actual statistic, but I think it's like over 70% of Bitcoin right now, the Bitcoin network is powered by renewable energy sources. The Bitcoin network uses, I forget how much exact electricity right now, but it uses about double that of Switzerland on a yearly basis, or something around, no, not double, around the same amount of electricity that Switzerland uses, the whole global Bitcoin network uses. And it's like 70% renewable power. That renewable power is being built for Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin miners are using their own money to build renewable energy sources. So when countries can actually get to net zero, it's because of Bitcoin miners. Not only that, but everyone's looking at the electricity and the power, the energy that we're using. And it's like, oh, we're emitting all this greenhouse gases and carbon dioxide, all this, cars and Tesla coal plants for superchargers. No, Bitcoin miners emit almost nothing. There's almost nothing going back in to our atmosphere. Whereas almost all other energy that's being consumed right now from my computer to Tesla supercharges is putting shit back into the environment. So he could have said that. He could have said that. And it's that. It's like when now I have people telling me Charlie, you're killing the environment by promoting Bitcoin for the past 10 years because they read one tweet from Elon Musk. It's stupidity.
Yeah. Well, see, the argument you could make is by what Tesla said is by not accepting Bitcoin anymore, we're effectively producing less carbon emissions because of this, skewed energy per transaction logic, which has been debunked, and well, they brought it up again.
A
But by
credit
still
card
holding,
transaction hurts the environment more than a Bitcoin transaction does. Like, doesn't
yeah.
anyone see that?
Well, the thing is also Tesla is still holding Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin is secure because of Bitcoin's proof of work. And so Tesla is still benefiting from the very system that they have been complaining about. And
So maybe this is the ultimate troll. Maybe he's trolling us. Maybe my reactions right now are what he wanted. Maybe he wanted us to talk about this more. Maybe he does love Bitcoin, but sometimes you have to go and throw your kid, in the deep end.
well, as I said, I have no idea what this man is on
Yeah, no.
about.
That's the title of this episode.
There's
We don't
this,
know.
At the moment, there's a lot of numbers being thrown around, and like I saw them for the first time actually when this whole controversy came up, because I never had any numbers on the percentages of renewable energy and whatnot. So it seems to be this Cambridge study, this recent one, this benchmark study, where 70%. So you either have people saying 70% is renewable or 30% is renewable, right? It turns out that according to the study, which I don't remember how many miners they actually talked to, but I think 70% uses in part renewable energy, and then 30% is total renewable energy, which is less
I
than
understand that's it's
70.
like 70% of 30 or
Yeah.
something like that, or 30 of
Yeah,
70.
but still, what Tesla argued was the rapidly increasing use of fossil fuels, especially coal. But if you compare the latest Cambridge study to one they did in 2019, I think, it turns out that, if I remember correctly, the percentage of renewable energy used for Bitcoin mining has increased since then. So I don't even know what they're on about. It all seems very random and very uselessly destructive. And in the long run, it won't do anything to the Bitcoin network. In the short run, it has hurt a lot of people. It will hurt a lot of people that are in Doge right now, I think,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, but
I've never
that's the
said
extent of
no.
it.
Like,
Elon is not going to be hurt by it. He's still going to be rich at the end of it. Yeah.
a lot of people are asking me about like buying Dogecoin, and I've never said like not to buy something, but it's like don't get in on a coin or token that like you're just, I don't know, like do your own research. It's one thing to hear about something from someone you like and know. It's another thing to just like blindly follow and be faith, and that's a very different thing that no one should do, and that's what's happening with him right now. Uh
Yeah. Nobody should buy Doge because Elon said to buy. Nobody should buy Bitcoin because Elon said, but his influence is very strong, and
So
people
tell
will
me
do
about
it.
the BTC Times. Like what was the straw that broke the camel's back for you guys? You're backed by a lot of prominent investors in the Bitcoin space. I don't know why I wasn't asked to invest, but it's okay. Maybe it got lost in the mail. Fine.
You still
Why?
can.
No, thank you. I thought it was a brilliant idea. You're walking a very fine line. You have to toe this line because uh, a lot of people will accuse you or accuse the BTC Times of being like this censored, not you specifically, but like pro or like pro Bitcoin or pro one specific coin type of thing. And I'm here to point out how wrong that is. I do this show to point out how wrong that is. So what are we writing about in the BTC Times today? What's going on? I really like the
Oh,
layout. It's so clean and nice and simple. Why did you guys launch this? Uh, and what's the editorial process like? How do you choose what topics to write about?
yeah. We launched the BTC Times because we felt there was a need for more Bitcoin news. There is a lot of outlets there, well, not a lot, but there's a growing number of outlets talking about cryptocurrencies. The thing is that there are thousands of coins that are taking up a lot of space in these outlets just because there's a lot going on, and it takes away from the Bitcoin content. And we believe that Bitcoin, and really in this regard, only Bitcoin matters and shouldn't be conflated with other cryptocurrencies. And I like to refer to something that Michael Saylor told our editor Elaine in an interview last year in December, where he said Bitcoin shouldn't be compared to cryptocurrencies. It should be compared to, it should be seen as a store of value. It competes with this financial system. It doesn't compete with cryptocurrencies, other cryptocurrencies. So we don't even want to talk about whatever rivalry is going on.
I don't put it in the basket. I don't put it in the. I say some people like put everything in crypto. On this show specifically, I say Bitcoin and crypto. Crypto is its own thing. Bitcoin is its own thing.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah. And we focus on Bitcoin. So we do write about Bitcoin, but we don't want to write, opinions. When we report news, we report news. When we have opinions, we have opinions.
I like it. Yeah, there's no opinions. There's no hostility. There's nothing. It's very nice.
Thank you. We are, very desperately looking for writers, though. So if anybody of your listeners would like to write for us, then we are very happy to have a chat.
Drop an email address where they can submit, because last time someone did that, there was like 50 writers that message. So where can they send you their some examples of things they've written?
That'd be amazing. You can just use editor@btctimes.com. That should be the best way. And then we'll take a look and we might reach out.
Guys, do it.
Yeah. We are like we're looking for writers. It's there's so much interest we've been receiving. I think our Twitter following grew a lot in the last couple of months. I think we're at 90K right now, which is amazing. Which tells us there is demand, and we're currently not able to meet that demand for all this news. We'd like to put out way more. So, feel free to
What's your favorite topic to write about?
Personally? Bitcoin. There's a lot going on. I have a few, I published a few pieces on the BTC Times. I wish I had time to write more. One that I really enjoyed to do was my interview with Gloria Zhao. She's a Bitcoin core contributor. And we talked about, her path down the rabbit hole, which was very interesting. And it turned out people really liked that. And I really enjoy doing these kinds of profiles for, people that have maybe some unconventional paths into Bitcoin, because her past isn't, the perfect Bitcoin past that you think people have, but it is very real. She was a student at Berkeley University, and she was the president of I think like a blockchain group, and she was very involved in blockchain projects. And when we talked about it, she said she felt a bit ashamed because of that. But I think a lot of people have that kind of past. They don't come to Bitcoin from Bitcoin. Sometimes they come to Bitcoin from other projects. They find other projects first, and then they get into Bitcoin, and they realize, oh wait, Bitcoin is very interesting. And then she was discovered by.
Why would she be ashamed of that? That's like how it really happens. A lot of times people learn about other things first, then they find their way into Bitcoin when they realize it's the most true message. I sound like a religion now.
Well, there's people that argue it is a religion, right?
I may be one of those people that argue that, and I don't disagree that may be a bad thing. I think what we think is modern day religion is a bad thing, but the concept of community and tradition and family is not a bad thing. But continue with the story, please. Why was she?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the reason she's ashamed is because there's a very strong Bitcoin only culture, especially if you are if you're active on Twitter or on social media at all. you see people bashing against other coins all the time. So I guess she just felt a bit ashamed of that. Um, but I don't think it's a big deal. It's, you know, everybody has their path to Bitcoin. So, but anyway, so that were her concerns. But she was eventually she applied at like a summer program at Chaincode Labs, I believe, and she wasn't accepted in at first, but later she was invited into the next one, into like the summer. I was going to say summer camp, but that's not it. Some kind of summer
I want to go
program.
to a Bitcoin summer camp. That would
I'd
be
love
so
to
much
go there.
fun. Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
Like
after this pandemic.
yeah. Well, like Bruce kind of does it with the round table. That's kind of like summer camp because you bring your everyone brings their families and stuff like that in Mexico. But I don't want to go
Right.
to Mexico right now. That's the only
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. So she did that program, and she then learned that, you know, Bitcoin Core contributor developers and contributors often they search for new people that they can help get into it and train them and show them how to contribute, so that, you know, this whole thing lives on, because it's not a job you apply for and then you get paid, right? You start it as a volunteer. And she was one of the very few people who really put in the work. And from my conversation with her, I could really hear that she's extremely disciplined. And I tried to, you know, highlight that in the article. And that was a really fun article to write, just because it shows you a bit of the people behind Bitcoin. You know, it shows you their background, it shows you what they believe in, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Developers on Bitcoin are like the most self-righteous people that I know because not only are they working very, very hard for free, they also have to deal with so much shit all the time. And I feel really bad. So thank you to those who are working on Bitcoin and not only to Bitcoin, but any developers working on really any piece of software who has to deal with people who don't understand software. Uh, I'm sorry, and thank you for doing that. But um, do they still view? Does she view her like role as a sacred one?
Not at all. Not at all. She's really I've met her as a really like modest person, and she is very aware of her role in this whole in this whole network. You know, she's contributing and she's trying to make Bitcoin better, but she doesn't think that, you know, she's super important, which, you know, you can agree or disagree. Like, I think what she's doing is extremely important, but she doesn't see herself as, you know, better or yeah, higher up than somebody who maybe is not contributing to Bitcoin. There's many different ways that you can be active in and around Bitcoin, you know.
The media created that narrative. The narratives are created, and then people join our industry now, and they look at the media and they look at the history and they think they know what happened. But you and I were there, and that's not what's actually going on. So
Yeah.
your role is to correct and to preserve the history of what's going on. My role is to do it and preserve it as well as best I can. Um, but that's really what we're fighting against, because the Craig Wrights of the world, there's going to be more of them. The attacks that we're seeing now, the FUD, we ain't seen nothing yet. It's going to be more, and it's going to be worse as Bitcoin grows and as it reaches certain milestones, and as it starts to be more part of mainstream payment systems and collateralization. It's not going to stop. So thank you so much for taking the time and coming on Untold Stories today. Thank you for writing. Thank you for doing your job. I hope I can't wait to see you back on the show. Hopefully in 6 months from now we can catch up again. And I wish you the best of luck and health and happiness.
Thank you. Same to you. Thanks so much for having me on, and thank you for doing your work.